Hello, Shalom. I was going to go ahead and do this video. I've been studying for the past couple of weeks. I'm doing some research. Read through the entire book of Jubilees and listened to it, and there's some very profound information, and I just wanted to get this out and share. But a few things I want to do first is I know I've talked about Sequina, and I wanted to get some information out here because I think it's important, and the difference between mindsets. The Hebrew language is focused on the function of things. The Greek is focused on the form, that which is seen, people, places, and things. And I just wanted to, and he talks about we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We cannot be any more spiritual than we already are. And some people get addicted to having spiritual experiences, or thinking that if they do not go to this particular meeting or that meeting within assemblies, that they're going to miss out on something. And I just wanted to, kind of encourage that that's not the case. And you can't miss Elohim. If he goes to the further reaches of heaven, he's there. And if you go to hell, he's there. And it kind of relieves a lot of pressure on what we should look like or do. And it's a matter of listening to the Ruach HaKodesh. And he's your teacher. He's the one that's the Eleazar, bringing you to Isaac, so to speak, as a pattern. Now, in Scripture, it says, he leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Well, that word path actually means cycles of righteousness. And I did some research on this, and I wanted to bring this up, and I think this is the right one. It's a track, also rampart, as circular, and it's cycles of righteousness. And again, it's like you're going around the mountain, around each year, each cycle you learn something new about him. And that's the difference between kind of a Greek and a Hebrew mindset. And I think it's important to remember that, because people always kind of Western, let's get there. Well, we're to be returned home. So here's the root. I want you can do your own research. Round, so it's like circular, from the root meaning to revolve in some of these scriptures. And when one of the things it talked about was Samuel. Samuel went from Ramah to Bethel to Gilgal to Mitzpah, then back to Ramah. And the sages said that everywhere Samuel went, he was heading home. The moment that we're born, we're heading home. No matter what, Yahuwah's will for my life is that I come home. And modern Christian churches, that I'll say churches in quote, does not view a lot of the Hebrew culture foundations of our faith. They don't view them as valid. They, say that they're done away with, or we're not being led that way. The feast of Yahweh, or Shabbat, they say we don't have to do that. That's done away with. And we're just following Jesus. Is the person you're following leading you towards Shabbat or away from it? Is the person you're following leading you towards the feast, their Yahuwah's feast days, or away from them? Is he leading you towards obedience to the Torah or the Father's instructions, or away from it? Who are you following? If you are really one of his followers, then you're going to be there's something inside of you that wants to do this, that wants to learn about these cycles of righteousness. Yeshua's coming back to Israel. and he's coming, are we going to be ready for him? And that's where I kind of wanted to address this. And it says, one of the things it says is that where is this? I think this is in, Isaiah 66. And it shall be from new moon to new moon, and from Sabbath to Sabbath, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares Yahweh. And they shall go forth and look upon the corpses of the men who have transgressed against me, for their worm shall not die, and their fire shall not be quenched, and they shall be repulsive to all flesh. And if you look at the cross references of these, Revelations 15:4 comes up as a cross reference to Isaiah 66. And who will not fear you, O sovereign, and glorify your name? For you alone are holy. All nations will come worship before you, for your righteous acts have been revealed. He's righteous above all else. And I just wanted to and also talk about Zechariah 14. And again, who are you listening to? Are they leading you towards, his feast days, his Shabbat, his times and seasons? And it's not about that. You should want to have a desire to learn about these things in his Torah and in his word. So I wanted to get that out. That's the first thing I wanted to. And now we're going to transition to the Festival of Covenants. I think this is extremely important. You can go look this up yourself, Torah.com. Now, it's talking about the day of Shavuot and the meaning of the day after Shabbat. So we're going to go through this, and this talks about in Jubilees a lot. So there's going to be a little bit here. According to the Jubilees calendar, they count 7 weeks back to the 15th of the third month. We arrive at the 26th of the first month. So it talks about the wave offering. And it goes through and talks about the different scholars and different things, how they interpret things. But this is important because Jacob celebrates Shavuot. In addition to having an exact date for Shavuot, Jubilees also adds an important theme to the holiday, a theme of covenant. This can be seen at looking what transpires on Shavuot in the book. And a major characteristic of Jubilees, as it rewrites sections of Genesis and Exodus, is the manner in which it anchors laws that only appear later in Torah. In Jubilees 44, the date of Shavuot can be determined based on the chronological data in the rewritten account of Jacob's descent to Egypt. So Israel set out from Hebron from his house on the first of the third month. He went by way of the well of oath and offered a sacrifice to Elohim of his father Isaac on the 7th of this month. 44:2. And Yaakov remembered the dream that he had seen in Bethel. He was afraid to go down to Egypt, but as he was thinking about sending the word to Joseph that he should come to him and that he should not go down, he remained there for 7 days on the chance that he would see a vision about whether he should remain or go down. 4:4. This is Jubilees 44. He celebrated the harvest festival, the first fruits of grain, with old grain, because in all the land of Canaan there was not even a handful of seed in the land, since the famine affected all the animals, the cattle, the birds, mankind as well. On the 16th, the Lord appeared to him and said, Jacob, Jacob. And so it goes through and it talks about the harvest festival in Sivan in the 15th and 16th, and it goes through and it talks about. So now also Abram's Shavuot revelation during the 5th year of the 4th week of this Jubilee, in the 3rd month, in the middle of the month, Abram celebrated the festival of firstfruits of the wheat harvest. The celebration of this festival on the 15th of the month corresponds to the date of the festivals of Matzot and Sukkot, according to Torah, which take place on the 15th of the 1st and the 7th month, respectively. Jubilees dates additional events to be the 15th of the 3rd month. So this is the covenant between the pieces, the birth of Isaac or Isaac, in covenant with Laban. Shavuot in the covenant with Noah. And he talks about renewing the covenant each and every year. Shavuot as a covenant going back to the time of creation. Now, this is important. According to Jubilees, the national covenant between Elohim and Israel was not first established at Sinai, but existed from the dawn of time, when Israel was already chosen as Elohim's nation in the first week of creation. He said to us, I will now separate for myself a people among my nations, and they will keep Sabbath. I will sanctify them as my people, and I will bless them. They will be my people, and I will be their Elohim. And he chose the descendants of Jacob among all of those whom I have seen. I have recorded them as my firstborn son, and have sanctified them for myself, for all the ages of eternity. The seventh day I will tell them, so that they may keep my Sabbath on it from everything, as he blessed them and sanctified them for himself as a special people out of all the nations, and to the keeping Sabbath together with us. This accords with the deterministic, dualistic worldview expressed in a number of passages throughout Jubilees, according to which the statutes of Israel and the nations and their heavenly angelic counterparts was established by Elohim as an integral part of the cosmos. Although Israel did not exist until over 20 generations later, its special position was determined in advance. Kind of let that sink in. This is before even Mount Sinai happened. And he goes through and he talks about the Jubilees. I think it's very important because it records it. And also, in my time of studies, I would recommend reading or go and listening to Joseph Dumond. I'll probably enclose a link for that, because it's time, you have to do your own research on this. And it talks about the Festival of Weeks. It's also the Festival of Oaths. It's a twofold in two kinds, according to, talks about the translation. The theme of the holiday as the Festival of Firstfruits refers to the agricultural context of the holiday, reflecting the biblical descriptions of its observance. And Festival of Oaths. And you can go through here and you can look at it. And he talks about the Qumran, the Hebrew and the Qumran. I'll give a link to the Dead Sea Scrolls. You can go online and look at them now. It's really cool. Similarly, according to Jubilees, the angels of the presence and angels of holiness celebrated the Sabbath from the dawn of time and were created circumcised. Both also describe the Torah as covenantal signs. So I thought this was very interesting, and we're going to go to the next one, which would be, this is Ezekiel's failure to mention Shavuot. And this is really cool because this is one of the festivals that doesn't actually have a date. It's dependent upon another event. So it has no date. The Torah only says to count 50 days or 7 weeks, and however that's translated, it's very interesting how you do that. From the day of the Omer offering, whose date is disputed. The holiday will fall out in the 3rd month of Sivan. The revelation at Sinai happened in the 3rd month, although no exact date is given. So, and it goes through, again, this is on Torah.com, and you go through and look at these, the Shavuot in the Second Temple text, and it talks about Chronicles. And they were assembled in Jerusalem in the 3rd month of the 15th year of the reign of Asa. They brought sacrifices to the Lord on that day. They brought 700 oxen, 7,000 sheep of the spoil. They entered into a covenant to worship sovereign Elohim of their fathers with all their heart, with all their soul. So they took an oath to the Lord in a loud voice, with shouts, with trumpeting, and blasts of the horn. So this is also in Shavuot. And Jubilees and Qumran, you can go through and look through this and talk about that and discuss that with your group or whatever, if you have that. And I find it extremely interesting, and I wanted to get, again, and people are going to celebrate this, what one way or another. And I wanted to also hear, and it talks about the Jewish calendar and Jubilees, a 364 day, and Jubilees is very specific on how they kept this. And he goes into this on the site, Dr. Michael Segal, and how they determined that. And here's the months 1, 4, 7, and 10 with the 1, 8, 15, 22, and 29. So that would be Wednesday. And then the months 2, 5, 8, 11, Shabbat, Friday. And this kind of makes a little bit more sense. And then you have Sunday. So this is, kind of their interpretation of Jubilees. And again, with all the calendars, I figured, why not? Let's just put this out here too. Because, we're all learning, right? None of us have arrived to know everything. So that's just my thoughts on it, because I want to learn. And again, I know nothing. And again, the paths. And here's something that was really cool. In Jeremiah 6:16, and again, if paths means cycles, and so thus says Yahweh, stand by the ways and see, and ask for the ancient cycles, where the good way is, and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk in it. So I hope you're not determining that you're not going to walk in this because you think, this is something that you've already got figured out. It's a cycle thing. It is a completely different mindset. Here's part of the Festival of Covenants. And so again, these were a lot of things that happened around in the month of Sivan. And again, go to Jubilees and read that. Now I wanted to, again, transition. And I wanted to talk about James 1:1 says, or it's Yaakov 1:1, a servant of Elohim and of the Master Yeshua, Messiah, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. So I think Joseph is taking off this Egyptian garb that he's had on, and he's revealing revelation himself to his brothers, which is Israel. Again, Israel was called way back before. And how are you going to know you're Israel? Do you keep his feast? And this is not about replacement theology. And again, this is a tangible thing that you do as an obedient servant or disciple of Yeshua. And here, Revelations 2:14, or Revelation, but I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols and commit fornication. Okay, so notwithstanding, I'm going to go to Revelation 2:20. I have a few things against you because thou sufferest. Okay, so we're going to break this down. Permit that woman to come into an existence, begin to be, receive, being, to become, to come to pass, happen of events to arise, appear in history, come upon the stage, appearing in public. Jezebel, see below, and I have a definition of that, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and seduce that which I possess, appointed for me. That's Yeshua speaking. Servants, a slave or bondman, man of servile condition, a slave, literal or figurative, involuntary or voluntarily, frequently, therefore, in a qualified sense of subjection, bondman, servant, to commit fornication, spiritual adultery, whoring after idols, male or female, of Babylon, Rome, the chief seat of idolatry. And then you go through and you break down Jezebel, chaste. Sorry, I cut that J off. Isabel. The wife of Ahab, the symbolic name of a woman who pretended to be a prophet and who claimed Christian liberty of eating things sacrificed to idols. Jezebel. Baal exalts, or Baal is a husband to, or unchaste. You can look these verses up yourself. So I broke this down, and I broke down Laodicea because it seems like, Revelation is also talking about the children of Israel. And what they did is they took out when it says synagogue of Satan, it is translated congregation in Hebrews 2:12 instead of the usual rendering church. Why they put that in there is probably because of replacement theology, because of anti-Semitism. And if you look at it, so it would be like church or assembly of accusers. That's what Satan means, accuser. So you have people that are an assembly of accusers accusing people. That's kind of what it's basically breaking down to. And if you look up Jews, it's different than what it is in the Tanakh. So go through this yourself, and don't assume that you know what these words mean, because that's what Abba said to me. Don't assume that you know what this means, and you can't. So Laos or Laos, justice of the people group, nation, all those who are of the same stock and language. This is breaking down Laodicea. And here's Dyke. Custom, usage, right, just, a suit at law, judicial hearing, judicial decision, sentence of condemnation, execution of a sentence, punishment to suffer. The goddess justice, avenging justice. This is what Laodicea means. And I put in here, because I was doing research for something else, the American way. What about Yahuwah's way? Because you say I am rich I am, and I am made rich and need none at all, and do not know that you're wretched, pitiable, and poor, blind, and naked. Again, this cross-reference is right to Ephraim. Indeed, I have become rich. I have found wealth for myself in all my labors, and they shall find in me no crookedness that is sin. And he says, but, I am your Elohim since the land of Egypt. That's what Egypt means. Again, I will make you dwell in tents as the days of appointed time. In every single one of these assemblies in Revelation, he gives us a promise to those overcomers. Overcomers means conquerors out of these assemblies. So you go through and you break down Nikeo, to subdue, literally conquer, overcome, prevail, get the victory. Things are not occurring as originally thought, and I think everyone should be so thankful that he's allowing repentance there in this time of pressing or narrowing of the way. And he says in Revelation 3:19, as many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. Be zealous, therefore, and repent. So as we come to this, this festival of Shavuot, and thinking about all of these things that has occurred during this time, from Jacob and from the covenant with Noah, going back to the times of creation, you have Abram's Shavuot, and you have the oath that took place. Go through and read the book of Jubilees. I mean, an additional event that dated to the third month of the 15th is the birth of Yehuda. And I put in my comment section on one of my videos about that. Kind of interesting pattern there. It is unclear whether this reflects the covenantal status of the tribe of Judah associated with the Davidic line, but it's very interesting. In Luke, it talks about Gabriel came to Miriam in the 6th month. So do the math on that. It also records the Jubilees calendar, the birth of Levi or Louis or Levi on the 1st of the 1st month, and Joseph on the 1st of the 4th month. And I think it's this is a warning. Again, you're responsible for the knowledge that you have. You can go through and look at this. Are you a Nicolaitan? What the Nicolaitans did. And again, each of these assemblies, you have an opportunity to conquer out of this, to overcome these assemblies and these things that are going, because it's very interesting that it's not just a matter of snatching out. That is a time for that, but you've got to overcome this. There's mindsets that these people we've had in our country and other countries in the Western world is not correct. And he wants us to come out of these things and be conquerors. We're more than conquerors through him that loved us. So that again, that overcomer means conqueror. Here is the Dead Sea Scroll digital library. You can go through and look through these. It's really interesting. Start becoming acquainted with this. Again, you're going to be responsible for the knowledge you have, and he's coming he's coming back. Love is coming down. What is love? Elohim is love. Translate this. So I wanted to get this out, and I hope this blesses. And do your research. Study to show yourself approved. Be a Berean. Get into his cycles and his cycles that goes around, and you learn more and more every time you go around in a cycle. Who knows? There could be 2 to 3 more cycles left, Shalom.